As rescuers pulled all Chilean miners from a collapsed mine in the last few hours, miners in South Africa put down their tools in protest against poor safety standards in South African mines. Joining us now on the subject is David Msiza, who's the Acting Chief Inspector of Mines in the Department of Mineral Resources here in South Africa. Mr. Msiza, thank you very much for coming through. I mean, the world's watched with bated breath and emotion as 33 men were pulled out of a shaft in a San Jose mine in Chile. And we as a mining economy, we've started asking questions. What lessons can we learn from Chile?
Okay. Good evening and thank you again. I would like to first start with, on behalf of the Department of Mineral Resources, congratulate the mining department and other role players who were involved in this rescue operations. And also we are proud that the South African mining company has been involved in this. What we are going to do as well, we're going to acquire further details of the accident itself and the rescue operations so that we can see where we can really learn to prevent a similar occurrence here in South Africa.
But just superficially, when you look at the situation, you can almost identify what they did which we don't do. And one of the things that many unions are raising right now is the collaboration between government, business and multilateral players like NASA.
Mm-hmm. I think in terms of what we call the Mining Health and Safety Act, it has been promoting the principle or the spirit of tripartism, what we call tripartism, where the respective role players, ourselves as a state, the unions and the mine owners as well, have to work together on improving health and safety moving forward. We have strived to achieve that, especially during trying times in emergency cases where, for instance, in one particular mine where there will be employees trapped as a result of an accident, the respective mines will also consult with their sister mines or other neighboring mines in trying to assist that. But we are not where, we acknowledge that we are not really where we should be in terms of in that regard.
Now talk to us a little bit about mine safety, because a study was commissioned a few years ago, and then the results, which were released last year, suggested that about 200 mine workers die per annum in South African mines. So if we know that we have very deep mines in South Africa, that we're prone to accidents, what's the way forward in terms of rectifying the situation?
The department is seriously concerned with the level of loss of life in the South African mines. But although I must mention the fact that this is one of the best years that we had in terms of safety, but we still experience a high number of fatalities at our mines. Hence, we've also have taken critical actions where necessary, including stoppages of mines to ensure that there are necessary steps that are being taken to prevent similar occurrences. But again, we believe that we have to have a multifaceted approach in terms of health and safety. Hence, we continuously engage with our relevant stakeholders on what steps can we really take on that. For instance, we recently commenced a study on culture in the mining industry. And there are interesting outcomes that really came out of that. And we believe that it will really assist us to change the legacy on health and safety at the respective.
If you had to do a comparison of South Africa and other mining economies like Chile, like Brazil, like Australia, how does South Africa fare in terms of mine safety standards?
I think in terms of the act that I referred to is considered as one of the best pieces of legislation in the world, but the challenge is implementation as well. In terms of, if you look at the profiles of the accident trends, I think in terms of the coal sector specifically, we fare much better when you compare Australia and you compare the USA as well. However, the hard rock mines, that is the gold and the platinum sector, that's where our main challenges are. But I must admit that we have seen a drastic change, especially in terms of attitude, in certain instances from an executive level to try and really improve on the status quo. We are now seeing more of these managers putting pressure where necessary, but we are still having those mining groups where we really believe that we should improve on.
Andrew, we're told that South Africa has some of the deepest mines in the world, if not the deepest mines in the world. And we know that from an investment point of view, it's added significantly to the costs of doing business for mining houses, because they've had to drill further down into the Earth's surface. They've had to import technology at exorbitant costs in order to do so. If safety becomes an impediment when you've invested so much to get so deep into the Earth's surface, what is the approach, do you think, that ought to be taken?
Well, I think you've got a question, and David would probably be the right person to answer this, but you can't look at safety as an impediment or as a cost item. South Africa has very progressive legislation from a corporate governance point of view. If you look at the implementation of King 3, which I think is world class, it's a triple bottom line. It's not just about finance, it's not just about the environment, but it's also about sustainability, and this is where safety fits exactly in. And I suppose it's a change of mindset around not focusing on it as a cost center, but rather looking and saying this is part and parcel of what we do. We have to work around it.
Do you think we can get a change of mindset, Andrew, when we're told that some of these minerals are finite resources, and gold, for instance, has a lifespan of, say, another 30 or so years, and now people seem to be chasing the money? Certainly that's the union's perspective.
But I suppose that's where the department has to step in, has to look and say, you know, is it safe, is it not safe, do their analysis, and ultimately you might get to a point where you just say it's not viable to go deeper, you can't chase the profit anymore, and that's where strong regulation and governance comes in.
Mining unions looking at the situation in Chile and drawing comparisons with South Africa are saying that the greed of mine bosses is to blame because they don't pay workers enough, and in fact just incentivize them by saying the more you produce, you will receive a bonus on your productivity. But if there was a basic wage, it would relieve the pressure of the mine workers going further and further down into the earth to mine some of these deposits. Is that a fair argument?
I think it's actually such reactions are really expected within, especially with the unfortunate loss of life within the inspectorate. Hence, I've referred to the issue of the unfortunate legacies that we had, and the culture framework that we are really we are currently working on. It really looks at the issues of like bonuses, because it's well known within the industry, and the unions will also say that. Some of the mining groups, they will put the huge bonuses as a carrot, and that unfortunately will lead to people taking shortcuts, and unfortunately at the end the loss of life. So we are really working together, including the business itself and the unions, to say how can we really make sure that health and safety is improved in a sustainable manner.
Andrew, would a basic wage for mine workers be a positive contribution to mine safety, do you think?
I think it would, but as a capitalist by nature, I do believe in incentivization. So I think you have to balance it, but not at the expense of, or not to encourage people to take unnecessary risks. At the end of the day, there is still a profit motive. It's not just about that. It's also about the spend on this equipment. As David mentions, you look at your open cast and your coal type of mines, safety record far better, but probably a more mechanized industry, if I'm not mistaken. So there are multiple aspects to it, and I don't think a basic wage is a solution per se.
Let's also continue talking about protecting the mine workers in other ways. What we've seen in Chile, for instance, with the 33 mine workers, all of whom have been rescued, is that for the next 6 months they're going to be undergoing significant medical examinations and tests, all to be paid for by the insurance company attached to the San Jose mine and whatever other sources. So again, you're beginning to see safety nets kick in. Do our mine workers have those kinds of safety nets? Should we be introducing mandatory insurance policies for mine workers paid for by the mining houses, also as a way of trying to regulate and protect the workers in the sector?
In terms of our laws or our legislation, there are such requirements that there should be money or insurance placed aside to cover employees in an unfortunate case where there's death or there's such an incident that really takes place. And also beyond that, the Mine Health and Safety Act, it also requires that before any person can also be employed within the inspectorate, the mine, they should undergo what we call medical examinations, or initially and continuous basis as well, depending on the risk that they are really exposed to.
Okay, and finally, big and contentious issue in South Africa is the nationalization of mines, a talking point, not policy, I must stress that. But nonetheless, again, the unions arguing that it probably isn't a bad way to go, because if you had a state mining company or you had government with equity in a mining house, it would force a situation where the safety and health standards are reviewed and enforced, and also to protect the earnings of workers and to protect their pensions as well. And so in that regard, unions are saying probably nationalization wouldn't be a bad way to go because it would empower mine workers.
Okay. I think on behalf of the department, the stance that we are taking in this particular regard is that it's not a government policy. And we believe, as I indicated previously, that at the end of the day, health and safety, it takes the input from every relevant stakeholder to make a difference in this particular regard. Until we really get that particular right and we put the necessary health and safety management systems, then we'll still have serious challenges. But we are, as a department, going to ensure that that takes place as we move forward.